The ancient cabin. In the heart of a dense, whispering forest, where the canopy above choked the light to mere slivers of its potential, there stood an ancient cabin, its existence nearly swallowed by the embrace of nature. This forgotten place, known only in the oldest of locals' tales, was about to receive unexpected visitors. A group of 5 friends, led by the adventurous and often overly curious Ethan, had set out to explore the less trodden paths of the forest. Ethan, Sarah, Mike, Olivia, and Tyler, all in their early 20s, sought the thrill of discovery and the stories that would emerge from their escapades. Their journey began as a weekend hiking trip, but Ethan had other plans, having heard whispers of the cabin from a grizzled old man in the nearby town. The path became less clear, more treacherous, and the air around them grew colder, denser, as if the forest itself was warning them away. Ethan, with a map whose reliability was as dubious as the tale that led them here, insisted they were close. Sarah, the pragmatic one, voiced her concerns, but the allure of adventure had them pushing forward, drawn to the mystery. As twilight descended, painting the world in hues of orange and gray, they stumbled upon the cabin. It sat there, an anomaly against the backdrop of nature, silent and imposing. Its wooden structure was ancient, weathered by countless seasons, and the air around it felt charged, heavy with a history untold. Despite their initial excitement, a sense of unease settled over the group. Tyler, who always had a keen sense for the uncanny, felt it first. "Guys, maybe we shouldn't be here," he whispered, a sentiment silently shared but unvoiced by the others. Ethan, however, buoyed by a mix of bravado and curiosity, stepped forward. "Come on, when will we ever get a chance like this again?" he said, pushing the creaking door open. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the door and the small windows, barely piercing the gloom. As they entered, the air turned markedly colder, sending a shiver down each of their spines, and with an ominous creak followed by a forceful bang, the door slammed shut behind them, effectively plunging the entire room into a gloom that was only slightly relieved by the thin slivers of moonlight that dared to penetrate the grime-coated windows. Panic ensued among the group, a cacophony of gasps and hurried whispers filling the air as they instinctively huddled closer. However, Ethan, ever the pillar of composure in moments of uncertainty, quickly rummaged through his backpack with hands that betrayed a hint of his own unease. His efforts were soon rewarded as he found his flashlight, a beacon of modernity in what felt like a portal to a bygone era. With a click, the beam of light sliced through the darkness, revealing a space that seemed untouched by time. Dust motes danced in the beam of light, an ethereal ballet that played out over the sparse furnishings and the aged wooden floor, each particle illuminated in a spotlight of its own before drifting out of sight. The light also laid bare the shadows that clung to the corners of the room like specters, as if the darkness itself was alive, watching, and waiting. The walls, adorned with peeling wallpaper that hinted at a grandeur long faded, seemed to close in on them, the patterns dancing menacingly in the flickering light. The furniture, sparse and covered in a thick layer of dust, spoke of years of neglect. A heavy, ornate chest sat against one wall, its wood warped with time, and a large, cobweb-draped mirror leaned against another, its silvering glass barely reflecting their flashlight's beam. An old-fashioned fireplace, filled with the remnants of long-cold ashes, hinted at nights spent seeking warmth from the chill that now filled the room. Above the mantel, a portrait, discolored by age, watched over the room with eyes that seemed to follow their every move, adding to the creeping dread that had begun to settle in their hearts. Ethan moved the light slowly across the room, illuminating the remnants of a life or lives that had once occupied this space, now reduced to mere echoes in the silence. The sight of a decayed bookshelf, its shelves bowed under the weight of tomes bound in leather and cloth, some of which had spilled onto the floor, suggested a once-cherished collection now surrendered to the ravages of time. Nearby, a table lay on its side, one leg broken, as if in the midst of some long-forgotten struggle. The beam of the flashlight, their sole source of illumination, became a lifeline as they navigated the room, the light casting long, twisted shadows that melded with the darkness, creating illusions of movement that toyed with their fears. With each step, the floorboards creaked ominously underfoot, a soundtrack to their tentative exploration, adding layers to the atmosphere of suspense that had enveloped them since the moment the door had closed, sealing them within the confines of a past that felt all too present. The cabin, with its unassuming facade, revealed its complexity upon closer inspection. It was a single, modestly sized room that bore the hallmarks of a dwelling that had seen much more than mere domestic life. The centerpiece was an imposing stone fireplace, its blackened interior suggesting countless nights of use, with logs still arranged in a manner ready to be lit. Opposite this, an old, sturdy table stood resilient against the weight of time, its surface scratched and worn, telling tales of myriad objects it had supported over the years. What truly set the cabin apart, however, and gave it an air of mystery, were the intricate symbols that had been meticulously carved into the wooden walls. These symbols, swirling in designs that seemed to defy the mundane, spoke of ancient rites and forgotten languages. They were etched with a precision that suggested a reverent hand, each curve and line deliberate, imbued with purpose. The symbols formed patterns that hinted at celestial alignments and esoteric knowledge, suggesting that the cabin had once been a place of significant ritualistic importance. Alongside these enigmatic carvings, the shelves that lined the walls bore their own marks of intrigue. They were laden with jars of various shapes and sizes, each containing substances that defied immediate recognition. Some jars housed liquids that shimmered in the dim light, casting hues of green and blue, while others contained powders and dried herbs that whispered of alchemical endeavors and herbalist practices long lost to modernity. Among these, more unsettling contents could be seen: small bones arranged in peculiar patterns, feathers that seemed too vibrant to belong to any known bird, and stones that pulsed with an inner light, as if containing the essence of the moon itself. This collection of arcane artifacts and the ominous symbols carved into the cabin's very structure evoked a palpable sense of being watched, as if the remnants of past ceremonies and the spirits invoked by them lingered still. The air hung heavy with the residue of energies once summoned, creating an atmosphere that bridged the gap between the physical and the ethereal, the known and the unknowable. As the group's flashlight beams traversed the room, illuminating these artifacts of a bygone era, the sense of intrusion upon a sacred space became overwhelming. It was as though the cabin itself was a living repository of ancient secrets, and their presence had disturbed the delicate balance of silence and remembrance that had reigned for decades. The realization that they were standing in a place that had once vibrated with the power of unseen forces sent a shiver through them, a reminder that some thresholds, once crossed, reveal worlds beyond the reach of ordinary understanding. Olivia, with a fascination for the arcane, was drawn to the symbols. "These are old, very old," she murmured, tracing them with a finger. "This place, it was used for something not good." As night fell, the forest outside grew silent, unnaturally so. The group decided to stay until dawn, too frightened to venture out. They lit a fire in the fireplace, its flickering light casting eerie shadows. But as the hours passed, strange occurrences began. Objects moved on their own, whispers filled the air, too soft to discern their source. Sarah, attempting to calm her nerves, suggested they might just be imagining things, a suggestion that fell flat when Tyler let out a sharp cry. He stood frozen, pointing towards a corner where the shadows seemed to deepen, coalesce. There, they saw it, the figure of a woman, barely discernible, her presence emitting a palpable malice. Ethan, despite his fear, addressed the apparition. "Who are you? What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The air grew colder, the fire flickered as if to go out, and then, a voice, ancient and sorrowful, filled the room. "My cabin, my curse," it said. "In life, I sought power beyond my grasp, and in death, I am bound to this place, a guardian to secrets not meant for the world of the living. The friends, huddled together, listened as the spirit recounted her tale. She had been a witch, feared and respected, but her thirst for knowledge led her to a dark pact that cursed her in death to the cabin, her spirit anchored to the physical world. To their surprise, she spoke not with malice, but with a warning. "You must leave before dawn," she insisted. "The forest is not kind to those who know its secrets." The night wore on, the cabin alive with whispers of the past, until the first light of dawn crept through the windows. The spirit's presence faded with the darkness, and the group, shaken but unharmed, hurriedly left the cabin, the morning light a stark contrast to the darkness they had endured. Upon leaving the eerie embrace of the cabin and its ancient secrets behind, the group expected to be greeted by the familiar sight of the forest path that would lead them back to the village. However, as they emerged into the daylight, what lay before them was not the path they had tread upon mere hours before, but instead, a landscape transformed. The trees seemed less imposing, their leaves a shade not known to earthly forests, shimmering with an ethereal glow that bathed the surroundings in an otherworldly light. Confusion and a sense of foreboding quickly took hold as they ventured forward, seeking the comfort of civilization and an explanation for the unsettling transition. As they approached the location where the village should have been, the group was met not with the sounds of life and activity but by an overwhelming silence. Before them lay a village, yes, but one so desolate and devoid of life it seemed a mere shadow of a community. Buildings stood silent and empty, their structures intact but bearing an aura of abandonment that spoke of a sudden, inexplicable cessation of life. The streets were empty, no signs of the inhabitants or the bustle of daily activities. It was as if the village had been frozen in time, its people vanished without a trace. A creeping realization began to dawn on them, an understanding so profound and unsettling it shook their very cores. They were no longer in the world they knew, but had somehow crossed a threshold into another realm, a place beyond the familiar confines of life and death, existing in a state of perpetual isolation. The rules of the world they knew no longer applied. Here, they were alone, adrift in a dimension that bore the semblance of their reality but was tainted with a solitude that stretched into eternity. The truth of their situation became inescapably clear. They were trapped, their return to the cabin and its ancient, mystical symbols having marked a turning point from which there was no going back. The rituals and energies that pervaded the cabin had not been mere remnants of the past but active conduits to a realm beyond their understanding, a realm that now held them captive. As they moved through the village, the reality of their eternal isolation sank in. There were no others to be found, no sounds of life to break the silence. They were alone, a small group of souls bound together by fate, left to wander a world that mirrored their own but lacked its essence. The village, with its desolate streets and empty homes, stood as a testament to their new reality, a liminal space between worlds where they were the only inhabitants. The group understood that their explorations and curiosity had led them to this fate, their desire to uncover the secrets of the cabin having sealed their doom. They were now inhabitants of a realm beyond death, beyond life, existing in a state of solitude that would stretch into the unending expanse of eternity. The cabin, with its carved symbols and jars of unknown substances, had been the gateway to this realm, a threshold they had crossed unwittingly, driven by the human urge to explore the unknown. Now, in this world that was neither here nor there, they were to remain, specters of a reality they could no longer touch, bound to an existence of eternal solitude. Dare to venture into the unknown. Join us on a journey where shadows whisper and secrets lurk. Subscribe now and ring the bell to summon fresh mysteries directly to your screen every few days. Ignore this call, and be warned, an eternal curse awaits those who wander in the dark, unguided. Do you have the courage to face the unknown? Your adventure begins with a click. Welcome to the realm where every notification brings you closer to the abyss. Subscribe, if you dare.